The marble floors gleamed under the chandeliers, each crystal catching light like trapped stars. I moved through the grand ballroom with my cleaning cart, invisible as always, just another shadow in black uniform among the glittering guests. The air smelled of expensive perfume, aged whiskey, and something darker. Power, maybe, or danger. My swollen feet ached in the cheap flats I'd worn for 12 hours straight, and my lower back throbbed with that familiar pregnancy pain that never quite left anymore. 6 months pregnant and still scrubbing toilets, my mother would have been horrified. I pushed the cart toward the service hallway, keeping my eyes down as I'd been taught. Don't look at the guests. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't exist. The hotel manager, Mr. Castellano, had made it abundantly clear that girls like me, poor, desperate, visibly pregnant, were lucky to have jobs at all. One mistake, and I'd be back on the street, trying to figure out how to afford prenatal vitamins on food stamps. The baby kicked against my ribs, and I pressed a hand to my belly, whispering, "I know, little one. I know you're tired too." I didn't hear him approach. That's what I'd remember later, in the countless sleepless nights that followed. How silently death moved. One moment I was alone in the corridor, and the next, the air changed. It grew heavier, charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. I smelled cologne first, something dark and expensive, cedar and smoke, and then I felt eyes on me, the kind of gaze that strips you bare, that sees through skin and bone straight into your soul. I looked up. He stood 15 feet away, backlit by the ballroom's golden glow, and my breath caught in my throat. Tall, devastatingly handsome in a way that felt dangerous, like staring at the sun. His suit was black and perfectly tailored, probably cost more than I'd make in a year. Dark hair, sharp jawline, and eyes, God, those eyes, cold and calculating as a predator assessing prey. 2 men flanked him, equally well-dressed, hands folded in front of them in that universal stance of professional security. This was someone important, someone powerful, someone I should absolutely not be looking at. I dropped my gaze immediately, heat flooding my cheeks. "Excuse me, sir. I'll get out of your way." I turned to push my cart back toward the service elevator, but his voice stopped me cold. "Wait." It wasn't loud, didn't need to be. The single word carried absolute authority, the kind that made kingdoms fall and grown men weep. I froze, my hands gripping the cart's handle so tightly my knuckles went white. Footsteps approached. Expensive leather on marble, each click echoing in the empty corridor. He stopped close enough that I could feel his body heat, could smell that intoxicating cologne more clearly now. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Look at me." I didn't want to. Every instinct screamed to keep my head down, to become even more invisible than I already was. But something in his voice, command mixed with curiosity, made disobedience impossible. Slowly, I lifted my eyes. Up close, he was even more striking. Sharp cheekbones, full lips set in a hard line, and those eyes, dark brown, almost black, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. There was violence in that face, carefully controlled, an intelligence that missed nothing. A thin scar ran along his jawline, barely visible, the only imperfection in otherwise devastating beauty. "What's your name?" His voice was deep, accented. Italian, I thought, though smoothed by years in America.
We are gearing up to do our last
Emma.
few dives of this expedition.
My voice came
before
out
we
barely
head
above a
back
whisper.
home.
"Emma Torres, sir." His gaze dropped to my belly, lingered there for a moment that stretched into
Hello.
eternity,
Nice to
then
see
returned
you
to my
all.
face. Something flickered in those dark eyes. Interest?
We
Recognition?
have just
It was
touched
gone
down
before I could identify
on
it.
bottom on a site we've
How
been
far
to
along?
before.
The question
in
surprised me.
the
Men like
mountain
him didn't
basin.
ask women like me personal questions. We weren't
And
people
we're
to them,
excited
just
to
furniture that occasionally needed
continue
replacing.
our sampling.
6 months, sir. The father? My
Right
jaw
now we
tightened.
have Andy
That was the
and
question, wasn't it?
Tyler
The one that
that
had led me
are
here? Scrubbing
piloting
floors in a
our
luxury hotel while my ex-boyfriend,
and,
ex-fiancé technically,
vehicle
though the ring had been
controls, and
pawned months
Tyler is
ago,
on manipulator
lived it up
controls.
somewhere with the money he'd stolen from his employer. Money I hadn't known about until the police showed up at our
As
apartment,
always, if you have
until
any
Marco
questions,
disappeared in the night,
I'm gonna
until I realized I was
pop up
alone
the
and pregnant
questions
and about to
panel
lose
shortly,
everything. Gone, I said simply.
but please feel free
No point
to
elaborating. Men like this one didn't care about sob stories. Something dangerous flashed across his face. Gone where? I don't know, sir. He left. One of the security men stepped forward, whispered something in his ear. The man, my mysterious interrogator, nodded slightly, but his eyes never left my face. It was unnerving, being studied like this, like I was a puzzle he was determined to solve. What hotel are you working at? He asked. I blinked, confused by the question. This one, sir. The Palazzo. His lips curved into something that might have been a smile on a less dangerous face. On his, it looked like a wolf baring its teeth. I know. I own it. The floor dropped out from under me. Oh, God. Oh, no. The owner. I'd been caught talking to the owner, wasting his time. Probably breaking a dozen rules I didn't even know existed. Mr. Castellano would fire me for sure. I'd be homeless before the week was out. I'm so sorry, sir. The words tumbled out in a panic. I didn't mean to bother you. I'll go right now. Please don't. You're not bothering me, Emma. The way he said my name, slow and deliberate, sent shivers down my spine. Quite the opposite. Before I could process that statement, chaos erupted. Shouting from the ballroom, breaking glass, then gunshots, sharp cracks that made my ears ring. I yelped, instinctively covering my belly with both arms as my cart tipped over, cleaning supplies scattering across the marble. Everything happened at once. The two security men moved like lightning, weapons appearing from inside their jackets. One grabbed my mysterious interrogator, the owner, he owns the hotel, and began pulling him toward the emergency exit. The other positioned himself between us and the ballroom, gun raised. Go, go, go! Someone shouted. More gunshots, screaming. The acrid smell of gunpowder mixing with perfume and fear. Strong hands grabbed my shoulders. I gasped, looking up into those dark eyes. Up close, I could see flecks of gold in the brown. Could see the tension in his jaw, the calculation happening behind that predatory gaze. You're coming with me. Not a question. A statement of fact. What? No, I can't. Not a debate, Emma. He was already moving, one arm around my waist, carefully avoiding my belly, practically lifting me off my feet as we ran toward the exit. His security team surrounded us, weapons drawn, moving in perfect synchronization. We burst through the emergency door into the cold November night. A black SUV idled in the alley, windows tinted so dark they looked like pools of oil. The door flew open before we reached it. He lifted me inside with surprising gentleness, then slid in beside me. The security men piled in, 3 in front, 1 beside us, and the vehicle was moving before the doors even closed. Drive, he commanded. Take the western route. Call Marco and tell him we have a situation. Marco. The name hit me like a physical blow. My Marco? No, impossible. Common name. Had to be. I pressed back against the leather seat, heart racing, trying to make sense of what just happened. One moment I was cleaning a hallway, invisible and forgettable. The next I was in a bulletproof SUV. I could tell from the weight of the doors, the thickness of the glass, speeding through downtown with a man who apparently owned luxury hotels and traveled with armed guards. I need to go back, I managed. My things, my locker, I need... Everything you need will be provided. You don't understand. I have to. He turned to face me fully, and the look in his eyes silenced every protest. Do you know who I am, Emma? I shook my head mutely. Dante Salvatore. He waited, watching my face for recognition. The name meant nothing to me. Should it have? He seemed to expect a reaction. I own the Palazzo, and 15 other hotels across the country, and several other businesses. The pause before other businesses felt significant. What happened tonight was an assassination attempt. 3rd one this month. The men who tried to kill me don't take prisoners, and they don't leave witnesses. Cold dread settled in my stomach. I didn't see anything. I swear. I was just... You were there. That's enough. His hand moved, and I flinched. But he was only reaching for his phone. You're a liability now, which means you have 2 options. Come with me where I can keep you safe, or go back to your life and hope they don't decide to use you to get to me. But I don't know anything. I'm nobody. You were standing next to me when the shooting started. Trust me, cara mia, that makes you somebody. The endearment. Italian, I was sure now. Rolled off his tongue like honey over gravel. My hands trembled as I pressed them against my belly, feeling the baby move inside me. This couldn't be happening. This was insane. For how long? I whispered. How long what? How long do I have to stay with you? Dante Salvatore studied me in the darkness of the vehicle, streetlights sliding across his face in strips of gold and shadow. When he smiled this time, it was different. Still dangerous, still predatory, but something else lurked beneath, something that made my breath catch for entirely different reasons until I decide you're no longer in danger. He paused, his gaze dropping to my belly again, lingering there with an expression I couldn't read. Or until you give me a reason to keep you longer. The SUV turned onto a highway, accelerating into the night, carrying me away from my old life and toward something I couldn't begin to understand. Behind us, sirens wailed, growing fainter with each passing second. I had made a terrible mistake, or maybe fate had made it for me. Either way, there was no going back now. The estate appeared like something from a fever dream. Wrought iron gates that opened silently at our approach, a driveway lined with ancient oak trees, and finally, a mansion that defied every expectation I'd ever had about wealth. 3 stories of pale stone and arched windows, illuminated by soft landscape lighting that made it glow like a palace from a fairy tale. Except fairy tales didn't involve gunfire and kidnapping, and men with eyes like winter storms. We pulled into a circular drive where a fountain burbled peacefully. Cherubs frozen mid-dance around the water feature. The contrast between the violence we'd fled and this serene beauty made my head spin. "Welcome home," Dante said. And the irony in his voice suggested he knew exactly how absurd that sounded. The security team exited first, scanning the area with practiced efficiency before one opened my door. I climbed out awkwardly, my pregnant belly making grace impossible, and immediately felt the November cold bite through my thin uniform. I hadn't grabbed a jacket, hadn't grabbed anything. Dante appeared beside me, shrugging off his suit jacket in one fluid motion and draping it over my shoulders. The silk lining was still warm from his body, and that intoxicating scent of cedar and smoke enveloped me completely. "Thank you," I murmured, pulling it tighter. "Come." He placed a hand on the small of my back, possessive, guiding, and led me up marble steps to massive wooden doors that swung open before we reached them. An older woman stood in the entrance, gray hair pulled into a severe bun, wearing a black dress that screamed housekeeper. Her sharp eyes took me in from head to toe, lingering on my pregnant belly and borrowed jacket with obvious disapproval. "Mrs. Chen, this is Emma Torres," Dante said. "She'll be staying with us. Have the blue guest room prepared immediately. She needs clothes, toiletries, everything. Contact Dr. Russo and have him come tomorrow morning for a full examination. Sir, it's nearly midnight, then wake people up." His tone brooked no argument. "And bring food to her room, something nutritious. She's eating for 2. Mrs. Chen's lips pressed into a thin line, but she nodded. "Of course, Mr. Salvatore." The interior was even more stunning than the exterior. A grand foyer with a chandelier that must have cost more than my entire apartment building, a sweeping staircase with an ornate banister, artwork on the walls that looked museum quality. Everything gleamed, perfectly maintained, intimidatingly expensive. I felt like a stain on pristine canvas. "This way." Dante's hand remained on my back as he guided me toward the staircase. 2 security men followed at a discreet distance. "You'll be on the 2nd floor east wing." "My rooms are in the west wing. Your wife won't mind?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. He glanced at me, amusement flickering across his features. "I'm not married, Emma. Girlfriend?" "No." "Boyfriend?" That earned me an actual smile, small but genuine. "Also no. I'm unattached." We climbed the stairs, and my feet protested every step. 12 hours of cleaning floors, then running from gunfire, then a high-speed escape. My body was screaming for rest. The baby seemed to sense my exhaustion, movements becoming sluggish. The blue guest room was exactly that. Walls painted a soothing azure, A 4-poster bed with what looked like Egyptian cotton sheets, a sitting area with velvet chairs, and French doors leading to a balcony. My entire apartment could have fit in this room twice over. Bathrooms through there. Dante gestured to a door on the right. Mrs. Chen will bring everything you need within the hour. There's a panic button beside the bed. Press it if you need anything or feel unsafe. I stood in the center of the room, still wearing his jacket, still trying to process that this was real, that I was here, in a mansion, with a man who owned hotels and apparently had people trying to kill him regularly. I don't understand, I said quietly. Why are you doing this? Dante had been heading toward the door, but he stopped, turning back to face me. In the room's soft lighting, his features looked less harsh, almost handsome in a classical sense, almost safe, though I knew that was an illusion. Doing what? Helping me. You could have left me at the hotel, told me to disappear. Instead, you brought me to your home. You're getting me a doctor, feeding me. I shook my head. Men like you don't do things without a reason.
You're kidding me.
He studied me for a long moment,
No.
and I watched thoughts flicker behind those dark eyes. Calculations,
It's not sexy.
considerations, secrets I'd probably never understand. You remind me of someone, he said finally. Someone who deserved better than what life gave her.
Yeah.
Who? My mother. He said it matter-of-factly, without emotion, but something in his posture shifted. She was pregnant and alone when my father found her. He could have ignored her, let her struggle. Instead, he married her, gave me his name,
Number 10.
built an empire partially so I'd never have to watch her scrub floors like you were doing tonight. The revelation surprised me. I'd assumed men like Dante Salvatore were born into wealth, raised with silver spoons and endless privilege. The idea that his mother had been like me, poor, pregnant, desperate, created an unexpected connection. What happened to her? She died when I was 12. Cancer. He moved toward the door again, clearly done with personal revelations. Get some rest, Emma. Tomorrow we'll discuss the situation in more detail. Wait.
The side or
I took a step forward, wincing as my feet protested. The man you mentioned in the car, Marco. What's his last name? Dante's hand froze on the doorknob. He turned slowly, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Why? My ex-fiancé. His name was Marco. He worked for someone. I never knew who. Just that it was import-export business. Then one day, the police came asking questions about stolen money, and Marco disappeared. I wrapped my arms around my belly protectively. $300,000, they said, missing from his employer's accounts. They questioned me for hours, tore apart our apartment, but I didn't know anything. I'd been working double shifts at a diner, trying to save for the baby. I didn't even know Marco had that kind of access to money. The silence that followed was deafening. Dante stood utterly still, but I could see his jaw working, could practically feel rage emanating from him in waves. Marco Russo, he said quietly, dangerously. That was his name, wasn't it? My blood turned to ice. Yes. How did you... He worked for me. Each word was precisely enunciated, sharp as broken glass. He was my accountant's assistant. Had access to several smaller accounts that we use for legitimate business expenses. 6 months ago, he stole $327,000 and disappeared. The room spun. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself, my vision tunneling as the implications crashed over me like a tidal wave. I didn't know, I whispered. I swear to God, I didn't know it was your money. I didn't know anything until it was too late. Dante crossed the room in 3 strides, and suddenly he was right there, close enough that I could see the fury in his eyes, could feel the barely controlled violence radiating from his body. I should have been terrified. Part of me was. But another part, the part that had been carrying this guilt and shame for 6 months, felt almost relieved that the truth was finally out. Look at me. His hand caught my chin, not roughly, but firmly enough that I couldn't look away. Look at me and tell me the truth. Did you help him steal from me? No. The word came out strong, certain. I loved him. I thought he loved me. I thought we were building a life together. Then one morning I woke up and he was gone. Just a note saying he was sorry. that he'd made mistakes, that I should forget about him. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. 2 days later, the police showed up. They didn't believe me either. He searched my face, and I let him see everything: the hurt, the betrayal, the bone-deep exhaustion of carrying another person's sins. Whatever he found there must have satisfied him, because his grip on my chin gentled, his thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't realized had escaped. "The baby," he said, and it wasn't a question, "is his." Yes. I forced myself to hold his gaze. I found out I was pregnant 3 weeks before he left. I thought he'd be happy. Instead, I trailed off, the memory still painful. He what? He asked if I was sure I wanted to keep it, said the timing was bad, that we should wait. A bitter laugh escaped me. I should have known then that something was wrong, but I was so happy, so stupid. Not stupid. Dante's other hand came up, framing my face between his palms. The gesture was surprisingly gentle from a man who radiated danger. Trusting, there's a difference. Is there? Because trust got me here. Pregnant, broke, cleaning toilets in a hotel you own, accidentally witnessing an assassination attempt, and now discovering that my ex stole from you specifically. I closed my eyes, exhaustion crashing over me. What are the odds? What are the chances that I'd end up working at your hotel, that I'd be in that hallway tonight, that the father of my baby stole from you? Emma. His voice cut through my spiral. Look at me. I opened my eyes. It wasn't coincidence, he said quietly. I've been looking for Marco Russo for 6 months. I have people at every hotel I own, watching for anyone connected to him. When you applied for the job at the Palazzo, enlisted him as your emergency contact, even though the number was disconnected, it flagged in our system. The world tilted again. You knew who I was? I knew you were connected to him. I had someone watch you, make sure you weren't involved in the theft. After 2 months, it became clear you were exactly what you appeared to be. A woman he'd used and abandoned. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. I planned to approach you tonight, ask you some questions, see if you knew where he might have run. The assassination attempt. Complicated things. So this was all. I stepped back, or tried to. But his hands held me in place. You were using me to find him. Initially, yes. He didn't apologize, didn't soften it. But that changed the moment I saw you in that hallway. The moment you looked at me with those eyes and I realized you were carrying his child. A child who's innocent in all of this. A child who deserves better than what fate has dealt them so far. What are you saying? His thumbs stroked my cheekbones, the gesture almost tender. I'm saying that Marco Russo made a lot of mistakes. Stealing from me, running away, leaving you alone and pregnant. Those were all mistakes that will have consequences when I find him. And I will find him, Emma, eventually.
Yes.
And me? My voice was barely a whisper. What happens to me? Dante smiled, and it was the most dangerous expression I'd ever seen. Beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. That depends on you. Before I could ask what he meant, a knock sounded at the door. Mrs. Chen entered, pushing a cart laden with food. Soup, bread, fruit, cheese, a pot of tea. She set it up on the small table by the window with brisk efficiency, studiously ignoring the fact that Dante still held my face in his hands. "Will there be anything else, sir?" she asked. "No, thank you, Mrs. Chen. Make sure we're not disturbed tonight." She nodded and left, closing the door softly behind her. Dante released me, and I immediately felt the loss of his warmth. He gestured to the food. "Eat. Then sleep. Tomorrow we'll discuss the future." He was at the door when my voice stopped him. "Why do I get the feeling you're not going to let me leave?" He turned, backlit by the hallway's golden light, and the smile he gave me was equal parts promise and threat. "Because you're a smart woman, Emma Torres, and smart women know when they've walked into a cage." His eyes glittered in the dim light. "The question is, will it be a prison or a sanctuary? That choice is entirely up to you." The door closed with a soft click, and I heard the distinct sound of a lock engaging, not from the inside. I was a prisoner in paradise. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw gunfire and Dante's predatory smile. felt his hands on my face, heard the lock clicking into place. The food sat heavy in my stomach. I'd eaten everything, unable to stop myself after months of rationing meals, and the baby seemed to sense my anxiety, shifting restlessly against my ribs. Morning light crept through the French doors, painting the blue walls gold. I'd spent the night in the velvet chair by the window, watching the ground slowly illuminate with dawn. The estate was even more impressive in daylight. Manicured gardens, a pool covered for winter, what looked like a guest house in the distance. Prison or sanctuary? Dante had asked. Looking at this beauty, it was hard to remember I couldn't leave. A soft knock preceded Mrs. Chen's entrance. She carried garment bags and shopping bags, her expression as severe as the night before. "Mr. Salvatore wants you downstairs for breakfast in an hour," she announced, laying the bags on the bed. "I've selected appropriate clothing based on your measurements. The doctor will arrive at 10. How did you know my measurements?" Her lips thinned. "Mr. Salvatore is very thorough." She left before I could respond, and I approached the bags with trepidation. Inside were maternity clothes, designer labels I recognized from magazines but had never dreamed of touching. Soft cashmere sweaters, silk blouses, well-cut pants with elastic waistbands. Everything in shades of cream, navy, and forest green. Everything tasteful and expensive, and nothing like the clearance rack clothes I'd been wearing. The bathroom was equally overwhelming. Marble everywhere, a bathtub that could fit 3 people, and toiletries that probably cost more than my monthly rent used to. I showered quickly, afraid to touch too much, to break something I couldn't afford to replace. The hot water felt like heaven on my aching muscles, and I let myself stand under the spray longer than necessary, pretending for just a moment that this was normal, that I belonged here. The navy sweater dress fit perfectly, skimming over my belly and falling just below my knees. I braided my dark hair, no time or skill for anything fancier, and avoided looking too closely at my reflection. The woman in the mirror looked like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. Finding the dining room took 20 minutes, and help from a stoic security guard who appeared the moment I opened my bedroom door. The mansion was a labyrinth of hallways and rooms, each more opulent than the last. Oil paintings that had to be originals, sculptures on pedestals, vases that screamed priceless. This wasn't just wealth. It was generational power made manifest. Dante sat at the head of a long mahogany table, reading something on his phone, a cup of espresso at his elbow. He wore a charcoal suit today, 3-piece, perfectly tailored. His hair was still damp from a shower, and without the chaos of last night, I could appreciate just how devastatingly handsome he was. Classical Italian features, strong and masculine, with that underlying current of danger that never quite disappeared. He looked up as I entered, and something flickered across his face. Appreciation, maybe, or satisfaction at seeing me in the clothes he'd provided. "Emma, come, sit." He gestured to the chair at his right hand, close enough to touch. "Did you sleep well? You locked me in. I kept you safe." He set down his phone, giving me his full attention. "There's a difference." "Is there?" I sat carefully, aware of the security guard who'd followed me taking position by the door. Because it felt a lot like being a prisoner. If you were a prisoner, Kara, you'd be in the basement, not a guest room with a panic button and 5-star accommodations. He poured coffee from a silver pot, added cream without asking how I took it. How did he know? And set it before me. "You're here for your protection. Until I neutralized the threat from last night, leaving would be dangerous. And how long will that take? As long as necessary." A woman in a black uniform appeared with plates. Eggs, bacon, fresh fruit, toast with butter and jam. My stomach growled despite my nervousness, and Dante's lips quirked. "Eat. The doctor will want to examine you soon, and you should have something in your stomach." I wanted to refuse out of principle, but the baby needed food, and pride was a luxury I couldn't afford. I ate slowly, aware of his gaze on me, studying every movement like I was a puzzle he was determined to solve. "Tell me about Marco," he said suddenly. "How did you meet?" The bite of eggs turned to ash in my mouth. "Why?" "Because he stole from me. Because he left you pregnant and alone. Because I want to understand what kind of man does that." His eyes darkened. "And because when I find him, and I will find him, I want to know everything." The threat in those words was undeniable. I set down my fork, my appetite gone. We met at the diner where I worked. He came in every morning for coffee, always left generous tips, always had a smile. The memory felt like it belonged to someone else's life. After 2 months, he asked me out. I said no at first. I'd been burned before, wasn't looking for complications. But he was persistent, charming. He made me feel special. And then I fell in love like an idiot. Bitterness crept into my voice. He had a nice apartment, said he worked in finance, took me to restaurants I couldn't afford. I should have asked more questions, should have wondered how an assistant accountant afforded that lifestyle. But I was working 2 jobs, exhausted all the time, and it felt good to be taken care of for once. Dante's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He proposed 6 months after we started dating. Nothing fancy, just a small ring and a promise that he'd take care of me and our future children. I laughed without humor. 3 months later, I got pregnant. He seemed happy at first, but then he started pulling away, working late, taking mysterious calls, getting anxious. I thought it was cold feet about becoming a father. It was guilt, Dante said quietly. He'd already stolen the money by then, was planning his exit. The confirmation hurt more than it should have. When did he take it? 2 weeks before he disappeared. He was smart about it. Small transfers over several days, routing them through shell accounts. If he hadn't gotten greedy and taken a larger sum on the final day, we might not have noticed for months. Dante's fingers drummed on the table, the only sign of agitation. He had help. Someone who knew our security protocols, our account structures. We never found his accomplice. I told you, I didn't know anything. I believe you. He leaned back, studying me, which makes you either the perfect cover or a genuine victim. I'm inclined toward the latter. How generous. I'm not a generous man, Emma. I'm a practical one. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. Marco Russo stole from me and disappeared. You're connected to him. That makes you valuable, as bait, if nothing else. The words hit like a slap. You're going to use me to lure him out. If necessary. No apology. No softening. But I don't think it will be. Marco is a coward. He won't risk exposure, even for you. Then why keep me here? Dante walked around the table, stopping behind my chair. His hands came to rest on my shoulders, heavy and possessive, and I felt his breath against my ear as he leaned down. Because you're pregnant with his child. Because that child is an heir to money he stole from me. Because... His hands tightened slightly. Something in my gut tells me there's more to this story than either of us knows yet. That's insane. Is it? His thumb stroked the side of my neck, a gesture that should have been comforting but felt predatory. Think about it, Emma. What are the odds that you ended up working at my hotel? That you were in that specific hallway at that specific time? That everything led you directly to me? You said you were watching me, that your people flagged my application. I had someone observe you, yes. But I didn't arrange for you to be in that hallway last night. I didn't plan the assassination attempt. And yet, here you are, sitting at my table, wearing clothes I bought, carrying the child of a man who wronged us both. He straightened, and I could breathe again. The universe has a sense of irony, it seems. Before I could respond, Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway. Dr. Russo is here, sir. The name made me flinch. Dante caught it, his expression darkening. No relation, he said shortly. Antonio Russo is my personal physician, and one of the few people I trust completely. He'll make sure you and the baby are healthy. Dr. E. Russo turned out to be a kindly man in his 60s, with gentle hands and a warm smile. He examined me in a room that had been converted into a medical suite, because of course Dante had a full medical suite in his house, and pronounced both the baby and me healthy, if a bit underweight and anemic. She needs rest, proper nutrition, and minimal stress, he told Dante, who'd insisted on being present despite my protests. The baby is developing normally, but Ms. Torres has been pushing herself too hard. Another month of that schedule, and we could have been looking at serious complications. She'll have everything she needs here, Dante said with finality. I'm sitting right here, I interjected. Maybe ask what I need instead of deciding for me. Both men looked at me. Dr. Russo with mild surprise, Dante with something that might have been amusement. My apologies, Emma, Dante said, though he didn't sound particularly sorry. What do you need? To go home. To get my things. To have some say in what happens to me and my baby. I stood from the examination table, pulling my sweater down over my belly. I appreciate the help last night, but I'm not a doll you can dress up and keep locked in a room. Dante dismissed Dr. Russo with a gesture, waiting until the door closed before responding. When he finally spoke, his voice was dangerously soft. You don't have a home, Emma. You were 3 weeks behind on rent for a studio apartment in a neighborhood where people get mugged at gunpoint. Your landlord already rented it out to someone else. Your possessions, what few there were, are in a storage unit that you haven't paid for in 2 months. Each word was a hammer blow. How do you... I know everything about you. Your mother died when you were 16. Your father drank himself to death 2 years later. You've been on your own since 18, working minimum wage jobs, barely surviving. No siblings, no close friends, no support system. He stepped closer, and I hated that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. You were drowning long before Marco abandoned you. At least have the honesty to admit it. Tears burned, but I refused to let them fall. That doesn't give you the right to decide my life for me. No, he agreed. But it gives me the opportunity to offer you something better. A choice, Emma. Stay here. Let me protect you and provide for you until the baby is born. Let my doctors make sure you're both healthy. Let me find Marco and make him pay for what he did to both of us. And in return, his hand came up, cupping my face with surprising gentleness. In return, you give me time. Time to figure out why fate brought you to me. Time to ensure that child, his other hand settled on my belly, palm warm through the cashmere, is safe and cared for. Time to decide if maybe the universe knew what it was doing after all. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now. His thumb brushed my cheekbone, and I hated how my body responded, leaning into his touch like a flower towards sunlight. But I promise you this, I will keep you safe. I will make sure your child wants for nothing. And I will make Marco Russo regret ever laying hands on what's mine. I'm not yours. His smile was pure predator, not yet. The days blurred into weeks, and I fell into a routine that felt surreal in its domesticity. Breakfast with Dante, always at 8, always with him reading business reports while I ate enough food to feed a small army. Mornings spent in the library, a room with floor-to-ceiling books and leather chairs where I could lose myself in novels and pretend I was anywhere else. Afternoons with Dr. Russo, or the prenatal yoga instructor Dante had hired, or sometimes just walking the grounds under the watchful eyes of security. And evenings, always evenings with Dante. He'd appear at 6 like clockwork, loosening his tie as he entered whatever room I'd claimed for the day, bringing with him the scent of cologne and the energy of someone who'd spent hours making decisions that affected people's lives. Sometimes he talked about his day, carefully edited versions that mentioned hotels and real estate, but never the darker business I suspected lurked beneath. Sometimes he just sat with me, reading while I knitted baby clothes from the supplies Mrs. Chen had provided with obvious reluctance. It was domestic, comfortable, terrifying, because somewhere along the way, I'd stopped flinching when he touched me, stopped protesting when his hand found the small of my back, or when he'd absently brush hair from my face, stopped pretending I didn't notice the way his gaze lingered on my growing belly, with something that looked almost like possessiveness. 3 weeks after that first night, I woke to find snow falling outside my window. The grounds had transformed into a winter wonderland, everything soft and white and pristine. I pressed my hand against the cold glass, watching flakes drift down, and felt the baby kick enthusiastically. I know, I whispered. It's beautiful, isn't it? A knock at my door. Not Mrs. Chen's brisk tap, but something heavier. My heart did a traitorous flutter. Come in. Dante entered carrying a garment bag and a box. He'd clearly been awake for hours, despite it being barely 7, dressed in dark slacks and a burgundy sweater that made his eyes look almost black. His hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd run his hands through it repeatedly, and there was tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there yesterday. "We're going out," he announced. I blinked. "Out? But you said..." "I said you couldn't leave alone. With me, you're safe." He set the garment bag on my bed. "We have a doctor's appointment at 9, the 20-week ultrasound." Dr. Russo arranged everything at a private clinic. The reminder that I was 20 weeks along, halfway through this pregnancy, made my chest tight. 20 weeks, and I still didn't know what would happen after the baby was born. If I'd be allowed to leave then, or if Dante's cage would simply take on a different form. "I can do the appointment alone," I said, though we both knew it wasn't true. "You don't have to." "I want to." He crossed to the window, standing close enough that I could feel his body heat. "I want to see if the baby is healthy. He trailed off, jaw working like he was trying to find words for something he didn't quite understand himself. "Want to what?" He turned, and the intensity in his gaze stole my breath. "I want to be there. For this. For you. Let me, Emma." It wasn't a command. For the first time since I'd met him, Dante Salvatore was asking, not demanding. And God help me, I couldn't say no. The clinic was in a building downtown that didn't look medical at all, just another office complex with tinted windows and discreet security. Dante's hand never left my back as we were ushered into a private suite, as the ultrasound technician, a cheerful woman named Sarah, positioned me on the examination table and warmed the gel. "Okay, let's see this little one," Sarah said, pressing the wand to my belly. The screen flickered to life, and there it was, our baby. More formed than the last ultrasound I'd had at the free clinic months ago. More real. I could see the curve of the spine, the flutter of the heartbeat, tiny hands and feet. Tears blurred my vision before I could stop them. "Everything looks perfect," Sarah announced. "Good size, strong heartbeat. Would you like to know the sex?" I looked at Dante. He'd moved closer, his eyes fixed on the screen with an expression I'd never seen before, wonder mixed with something fiercer. Protective, almost reverent. "Yes," we said simultaneously. Sarah smiled. "It's a boy. Congratulations. A boy." I was having a boy. Marco's son. The weight of it settled over me. This child would grow up looking for his father, would ask questions I didn't have good answers for, would wonder why he'd been abandoned before he was even born. Dante's hand found mine, fingers threading through mine and squeezing gently. When I looked up, his dark eyes were locked on my face, not the screen. "He'll never want for anything," he said quietly, fiercely. "I promise you that, Emma. Whatever else happens, this boy will grow up knowing he's wanted, protected, valued. He's not yours," I whispered, though the words felt hollow even as I said them. "No," Dante agreed. "He's yours. But that doesn't mean I can't ensure his future is secure." The ride back to the estate was quiet, both of us lost in thought. Snow had accumulated on the roads, and the city looked like a postcard, all soft edges and muted colors. Dante's hand rested on my knee. When had that become normal? His thumb tracing absent patterns through my coat. "I have something to tell you," he said, as we turned onto the long driveway. "We found Marco." My heart stopped. "What?" "My people located him 2 days ago. Mexico City, living in a cheap hotel under an assumed name. He's burned through most of the money, gambling, drinking, bad investments." Dante's voice was carefully neutral, but I could feel rage simmering beneath. "He's been following news about you. Saw articles about the shooting at the Palazzo, about you being missing. He thinks you're dead." The revelation hit like a physical blow. "He thinks..." And he didn't try to find out, didn't contact police, or... He's relieved, Emma. Dante's hand tightened on my knee. One less complication. One less person who could lead authorities to him. I'd thought the betrayal couldn't cut any deeper. I'd been wrong. What happens now? My voice sounded distant, disconnected. Now I decide what to do with him. I could have him killed, would take a single phone call, could have him arrested, though the charges might not stick given how he moved the money, could have him brought here, make him face what he's done. He paused as the SUV stopped in front of the mansion. "Or I could let you decide." I turned to stare at him. "Me?" He's the father of your child. Whatever I feel about what he did to me, what he did to you is worse. So the choice is yours, Kara. What do you want me to do with Marco Russo? The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implications. Through the window, I could see Mrs. Chen waiting at the entrance, see the security team taking positions. This world Dante inhabited, where life and death decisions were made over breakfast, where justice came from private enforcers rather than courts. It should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something else, something darker. I want to see him, I heard myself say. I want him to know I'm alive, that his son is alive. I want him to understand what he threw away. Dante's smile was slow and dangerous. That can be arranged. 4 days later, I stood in what Dante called the conference room, but looked more like an interrogation chamber. Concrete floors, minimal furniture, and one-way glass that Dante explained let us observe without being seen. My hands trembled as I pressed them against the glass, watching as 2 security men escorted Marco into the room. He looked terrible, thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under his eyes and a scraggly beard that didn't suit him. His clothes were rumpled, his hands zip-tied in front of him. When they pushed him into a chair, he slumped forward, defeat written in every line of his body. He doesn't know you're here, Dante said from behind me. We told him he was being questioned about the theft. He has no idea you survived, that you're safe, that you're pregnant, I finished. He has no idea I'm still pregnant with his child. Dante's hands settled on my shoulders, warm and grounding. Say the word and I'll bring you in there. Let you face him. Or we can leave now. Forget this. And I'll handle him my way. I watched Marco through the glass. This man I'd loved. This man who'd promised me forever and delivered abandonment. Part of me wanted to run, to preserve the memory of who I'd thought he was. But a larger part, the part that had been growing stronger during my weeks in Dante's home, wanted answers. Bring me in. The door opened with a heavy click, and Marco's head snapped up as I entered. His eyes went wide, mouth falling open in shock as he took in my appearance, the expensive maternity dress, the healthy glow Dr. Russo said came from proper nutrition, the obvious bump of my belly. Emma, his voice cracked. You're alive. They said you were missing, that there was a shooting. There was. I moved closer, letting him see everything, the life growing inside me, the evidence of how well I'd been cared for. I survived. No thanks to you. He struggled against his restraints, leaning forward. Thank God. I've been so worried. When I heard about the shooting, I thought, you thought you'd gotten lucky. The words came out cold, hard. One less person who could identify you. One less complication. Isn't that what I was, Marco? A complication you could abandon? His face went pale. No. Emma, no, you don't understand. Then explain it to me. I pulled out the chair across from him, sat down despite my shaking legs. Explain how the man who said he loved me, who proposed, who seemed happy about the baby, could steal $300,000 and disappear in the night. Explain how you could leave me to face the police alone, to lose everything, to wonder if I'd end up homeless and pregnant on the street. I was going to come back for you, he said desperately. I just needed time to get settled, to make sure the money was secure. Then I was going to send for you, I swear.
Yeah.
Liar. The door opened behind me, and Dante entered, his presence filling the room like a storm. Marco's eyes went even wider, and I watched all the color drain from his face. She's been in my care for almost a month now, Marco. Plenty of time to tell me the whole story, including the part where you were relieved when you thought she'd died. Who the hell are you? Marco demanded, though his voice shook. I'm the man you stole from. I'm the man who's been hunting you for 6 months. And Dante moved to stand behind my chair, his hands coming to rest on my shoulders in a gesture that was both possessive and protective. I'm the man who's been taking care of what you abandoned. Marco's gaze darted between us, comprehension dawning with growing
Claro,
horror.
esta, me encanta
No.
la
Emma,
metáfora, la
you can't be
manera
with
de
him.
comparar que tienen ustedes, que
Do you
están
know who
diciendo es
he
como
is?
si nosotros
What he
humanos
does?
no necesitáramos
I know
más del
exactly who he
digestivo
is,
porque nos
I said
asociamos a
calmly.
plantas que nos dan
He's the man who
su
saved my
alimento.
life, who's made sure your son, I
tal
saw
cual.
Marco flinch at that, is healthy and safe. who's given me more in 4 weeks than you did in a year. Emma,
Como si
please.
tuviéramos
Marco
en
strained
nuestra
against his zip
panza
ties.
alguitas que nos
He's
van
dangerous.
transfiriendo
He'll use
su
you,
energía. Nosotros
hurt you.
nos convertimos en,
Like you did?
en
My
el
voice
medio
rose
para
despite
que
my
esas
attempt to
alguitas
stay
obtengan
calm.
luz.
At least
Entonces
Dante's been
estamos en
honest
la
about
luz
what he wants.
solar todo el tiempo
You lied to me
y-
from day one. Made me love
y
you.
nos transfieren
Made me
la
believe
energía
we had a
directamente, así que
future,
no
then
tenemos que comer
stole and
más.
ran the moment things got
Pero sería
complicated.
bastante aburrido
I
porque no podemos
panicked.
comer chocolate,
Marco's
no podemos,
composure cracked completely.
comer helado.
The money was just sitting there, and I had debts. Gambling debts to people who would have killed me. I didn't mean to take so much, but once I started, I couldn't stop. And then you got pregnant and I realized I couldn't give you the life you deserved, couldn't be the man you needed. So you decided the best solution was to become even worse? Dante's voice was dangerously soft. You left her with nothing, Marco. Less than nothing. You left her with your debt, your sins, your child to raise alone. I made a mistake. You made a choice. I stood, Dante's hand sliding from my shoulders but staying close, always close. And now you get to live with the consequences. You wanted to know who Dante is? He's the man who's going to raise your son, who's going to teach him honor, loyalty, responsibility, everything you're not. Your son will grow up calling another man father, will never know your name except as a cautionary tale. The devastation on Marco's face should have made me feel victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired of anger, tired of betrayal, tired of carrying the weight of his choices. Please, Marco whispered. Emma, please, I'm his father. You can't... I can. I turned to Dante. I'm done here. Dante nodded, already moving toward the door. As it opened, I paused, looking back at the man who'd once been my entire world. For what it's worth, Marco, I did love you. And I would have stood by you through anything if you'd just been honest with me. But you chose to run. So now I'm choosing to move forward. My hand settled on my belly, feeling the baby, our baby, move beneath my palm. Your son will be better off never knowing what a coward his biological father was. I walked out without looking back, Dante's hand immediately finding the small of my back as the door closed behind us. In the observation room, I finally let myself shake, let the adrenaline and emotion crash over me. You did well, Dante said quietly. It doesn't feel like winning, because you have a good heart.
Yes, so shall we...
You wanted to believe he was better than he showed himself to be. His arms came around me from behind, careful of my belly, his chin resting on top of my head. But now you know the truth, and you can move forward without wondering what if. I leaned back against his chest, letting myself take comfort in his solid presence. What will you do with him? What do you want me to do? I thought about it. Really thought about it. About justice and revenge and what kind of man I wanted raising my son, even indirectly. About the example I wanted to set. Let him go, I said finally. Take back whatever money he has left, but let him go. Let him live with the knowledge that he threw away everything for nothing. That's punishment enough. Dante was quiet for a long moment, and I wondered if he'd refuse, if this was a line he wouldn't cross even for me. Then he pressed a kiss to the top of my head. The first time he'd done that, the gesture so tender it made my breath catch. Okay, he said simply. If that's what you want, it is. Then it's done. His arms tightened around me, and I felt the rumble of his voice through his chest. You're free of him now, Emma, completely. Whatever happens next is your choice. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. My choice, to stay or go. To accept what was building between us or walk away. To let my son grow up in Dante's world. Or struggle to build something else on my own. I turned in his arms, looking up into those dark eyes that had once seemed so cold and now held warmth that terrified me with its intensity. What do you want from me? I whispered. Really? His hand came up to cup my face, and I saw something in his expression I'd never seen before. Vulnerability. I want you to stay. Not because you're trapped. Not because you need protection, but because you want to be here with me. His thumb brushed my lower lip. I want to raise this boy as my own. Want to teach him to be strong and honorable. Want to give him the father Marco never could be. And I want... He paused, jaw working. I want you, Emma. All of you. Not just until the baby comes. Not just until the danger passes. Forever. My heart pounded so hard I was sure he could hear it. Dante, I know we've only known each other a month. I know you have every reason not to trust me. His other hand settled on my belly, palm warm through my dress. But I also know that from the moment I saw you in that hallway, something changed. Like fate decided we belonged together and was willing to burn the world down to make it happen. Tell me you don't feel it too. I couldn't. Because I did feel it. This magnetic pull between us. This sense of inevitable collision. It terrified me, and thrilled me in equal measure. I'm scared, I admitted. Good, so am I. He smiled, and it transformed his face from dangerously handsome to devastating.
I think that was the first
But maybe we can be
so,
scared together. Before I could overthink it, before doubt could creep back in. I rose on my toes and pressed my lips to his. The kiss was soft at first, tentative. But then his arms wrapped around me, and it deepened into something that stole my breath and made my knees weak. He kissed me like I was precious, like I was his, like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. "Marry me," he said. I laughed, slightly hysterical. "You're insane." "Probably." His smile widened. "Marry me anyway. Give your son my name. Let me protect you both, provide for you both. Let me be the family you lost and the future you deserve." Dante, you don't have to answer now. Think about it. Take all the time you need. He kissed my forehead, my cheeks, the tip of my nose. "But know that I'm not going anywhere, Emma Torres. Whether you marry me tomorrow or in a year, I'm already yours. Have been since the moment you looked at me with those eyes and didn't flinch." I should have said no. Should have asked for time to process, to think, to be rational. But standing there in his arms, feeling safe for the first time in years, I couldn't imagine any future that didn't include this dangerous, complicated, surprisingly tender man. "Ask me again tomorrow," I whispered. His smile was brilliant. "I'll ask you every day until you say yes." He did ask me every day, sometimes over breakfast, casual as commenting on the weather. Sometimes in the library, kneeling beside my chair with theatrical flair that made me laugh despite myself. Once in the garden during a snowball fight I'd initiated and he dominated with ruthless efficiency, both of us breathless and grinning like children. "Marry me, Emma." And every day I'd smile and say, "Ask me tomorrow." It became our game, our ritual. But beneath the playfulness, something deeper was growing. Dante integrated me into his life with an inevitability that felt both terrifying and natural. He taught me about his legitimate businesses, the hotels, the real estate holdings, the investments. He never hid the darker aspects of his world, but he kept me carefully separate from them, a line I both appreciated and questioned. "I don't want you tainted by that part of my life," he explained one evening as we sat in his study, him working through contracts while I knitted a tiny blue sweater. "You and the baby, you're clean, pure. Everything I touch turns complicated. But with you, it's simple, good." "Nothing about this is simple," I countered, but my tone was gentle. He looked up from his papers, eyes soft in the lamplight. "No, but it's good, isn't it?" I couldn't deny that. Despite everything, the circumstances that brought us together, the speed at which we'd fallen into this domestic pattern, the constant awareness that I was living in a world I didn't fully understand, it was good. Better than good. For the first time since my mother died, I felt like I belonged somewhere, with someone. Christmas came and went in a blur of excess that made my head spin. Dante filled an entire room with presents. Maternity clothes, baby supplies, books, jewelry I was afraid to wear.
Yes.
He hired a chef for Christmas dinner, just the two of us at that long mahogany table, and held my hand while we ate. Afterward, We sat by the fireplace in the living room, my feet in his lap while he rubbed my swollen ankles, and we watched snow fall outside the windows. My mother loved Christmas, he said quietly. Even when we had nothing, she'd make it magical. Paper snowflakes on the windows, cookies we could barely afford to make, stories about her childhood in Italy. Tell me about her, I urged, threading my fingers through his. He did, painting a picture of a woman who'd survived poverty and abuse, who'd found strength in love, who'd raised her son to be ruthless when necessary but never cruel. She taught me that power without purpose is just violence, that the people who depend on you deserve protection, loyalty, care, that family, chosen or blood, is everything. She sounds wonderful. She was. His thumb stroked over my knuckles. She would have loved you. Would have loved this. He gestured between us. You being here, giving me a chance at the family I thought I'd never have. The longing in his voice made my chest ache. Dante, I know. Ask you tomorrow. He smiled, but it was bittersweet. I'm a patient man, Emma. I can wait. New Year's Eve, I went into false labor. The panic in Dante's eyes as he carried me to the SUV, barking orders at his security team, would have been funny if I hadn't been terrified myself. At the hospital, the same private clinic where we'd had the ultrasound, Dr. Russo examined me and declared it Braxton Hicks contractions. Practice for the real thing. But everything's okay? Dante demanded, his hand crushing mine. The baby's okay? Emma's okay? Everyone's fine, Dr. Russo assured him. Emma just needs rest and to stay hydrated. The baby could come any time in the next 6 to 8 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks. The timeline that had seemed abstract suddenly became very real. Soon I'd have a son. Soon I'd have to make actual decisions about the future, instead of living in this suspended state where tomorrow always felt far away. That night, Dante carried me up to my room. When had I started thinking of it as my room instead of the guest room, and helped me change into pajamas with a tenderness that made my throat tight? He settled me under the covers, then surprised me by climbing in beside me, still fully dressed, pulling me carefully against his chest. I thought I was losing you both, he admitted into the darkness. For 20 minutes in that car, I thought... His arms tightened. I can't lose you, Emma, either of you. I know I have no right to feel that way. I know this baby isn't mine biologically. I know you never promised me anything, but the thought of a world without you in it... Shh. I pressed my hand over his heart, feeling it race beneath my palm. I'm here. We're here. We're not going anywhere. Promise me. Dante. Promise me, Emma. Promise you'll stay. Not just until the baby comes. Not just until you feel safe enough to leave. Promise me forever. I should have hedged. Should have maintained some emotional distance. Instead, I found myself turning in his arms, looking up into eyes that held so much desperate hope it stole my breath. I promise, I whispered. I'm not leaving you. The kiss he gave me was different from the others we'd shared, deeper, more possessive, edged with relief and need. His hands tangled in my hair, gentle despite the intensity. And when we finally broke apart, I saw tears in his eyes. Marry me, he said again. This time I didn't deflect. Yes. He froze. What? Yes. I'll marry you. Today, tomorrow, whenever you want. Yes. The joy that transformed his face was beautiful to witness. He kissed me again, laughing against my lips, and I felt his tears mix with my own. You mean it? I mean it. I cupped his face in my hands. I love you, Dante Salvatore. I don't know when it happened. Don't know if it was the first time you called me cara mia, or the 1000th time you asked me to marry you. But I love you, and I want to build a life with you, and I want our son. The word felt right, felt true, to call you father, our son. He repeated reverently. God, Emma, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret this. I won't, I said, and meant it. We were married 3 days later in the mansion's library, with just Dr. Russo and Mrs. Chen as witnesses. I wore a cream silk dress that accommodated my belly, and Dante had somehow procured roses in January, cream and blush pink, my favorites, though I'd never told him. He'd just known. The ceremony was brief, conducted by a judge who owed Dante a favor and asked no questions about the rushed timeline. When Dante slipped the ring on my finger, a stunning emerald-cut diamond that probably cost more than I'd make in a lifetime, his hands shook slightly. "With this ring, I thee wed," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I promise to protect you, provide for you, cherish you, and raise your son as my own. I promise to be the man you deserve, even when I fall short. I promise to love you until my last breath and beyond." I repeated my vows through tears, my hand trembling in his. "I promise to stand beside you, to trust you even when it's hard, to build a home with you. I promise to let you love us, me, and our son, and to love you back with everything I have. I promise to be your family, now and always. I now pronounce you husband and wife," the judge declared. "You may kiss your bride." Dante kissed me like he was sealing a sacred vow, like I was the most precious thing in his world. And in that moment, surrounded by books and witnessed by the few people in his life he truly trusted, I felt more married than any elaborate ceremony could have made me feel. Mrs. Chen surprised us both by crying, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. "About time," she muttered. "The way you two have been dancing around each other. It's been exhausting to watch." That evening, we celebrated with a small dinner, just the two of us, in the formal dining room that had been decorated with candles and flowers. Dante had arranged for a string quartet to play softly in the corner, and he kept finding excuses to touch me. His hand on mine, fingers brushing my cheek, his knee pressed against mine under the table. "I have something for you," he said as dessert was cleared away. He produced a leather folder, set it before me. "Your wedding present." Inside were legal documents, custody papers, adoption forms, all prepared and waiting for my signature. "I want to adopt him," Dante explained. "Legally, officially. I want my name on his birth certificate. I want him to be mine in every way that matters." Fresh tears spilled over. "Dante, you don't have to decide now, but I want you to know that's what I want. Not because I'm trying to replace Marco. He was never a real father to begin with, but because this child is yours, and you're mine, and that makes him mine too." His hand covered the spot where the baby kicked. "He's already my son in my heart, Emma. Let me make it official." I signed the papers with shaking hands, watching Dante's face as he realized what I was doing. The wonder there, the pure joy, was worth every moment of doubt and fear that had led us to this point. "Thank you," he whispered, gathering me into his arms. "Thank you for giving me this, for giving me everything." Our son was born on a snowy February morning after 16 hours of labor that tested every limit I thought I had. Dante never left my side, holding my hand through every contraction, whispering encouragement in Italian and English, letting me squeeze his fingers hard enough to bruise. When our boy finally entered the world with a lusty cry, the look on Dante's face was something I'd remember forever. Absolute awe mixed with fierce protectiveness. Dr. Russo placed the baby in my arms, and I stared down at perfect tiny features, dark hair, and eyes that would probably turn brown like Marco's. But when Dante leaned over us both, his finger tracing our son's cheek with infinite gentleness, I didn't think about Marco at all. "He's perfect," Dante breathed. "Emma, he's absolutely perfect. Do you want to hold him?" The fear that flashed across Dante's face was almost comical. This man who faced down assassins and ran an empire, terrified of holding a 7-pound infant. But he gathered our son into his arms with surprising competence, cradling him like he was made of spun glass. "Hey there, Piccolo," he murmured. "I'm your papa. I know I'm not perfect. I know I've done things I'm not proud of. But I promise you this. I will love you and protect you with everything I am. You will never doubt that you're wanted, that you're cherished, that you're mine." He looked up at me, eyes bright with unshed tears. "What should we name him?" We discussed names, narrowed it down to 3 favorites. But looking at my husband holding our son, I knew there was only one choice. "Matteo," I said, "after your mother's father. Matteo Salvatore." Dante's breath caught. "You mean it?" I mean it. I reached out, squeezed his free hand. He's a Salvatore. He deserves a name that reflects that legacy. Matteo Antonio Salvatore, Dante said, testing it out. He looked down at the baby, who'd quieted in his arms, tiny fist wrapped around Dante's finger. Welcome to the family, Matteo. Welcome home. The weeks that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and steep learning curves. Dante threw himself into fatherhood with the same intensity he brought to everything else, hiring a night nurse so I could rest, reading every parenting book he could find, consulting with Dr. Russo about every tiny concern. He changed diapers with military precision, walked the floors at 3 a.m. singing Italian lullabies, and looked at our son like he'd hung the moon. I never thought I'd have this, he admitted one night as we sat in the nursery watching Matteo sleep in his crib. The room was painted soft blue, filled with toys and books and every luxury a child could need. A family. Someone to carry on my name who I could actually be proud of. Someone to build something better for. You're an amazing father, I said, leaning my head on his shoulder. I'm trying to be. His arm came around me, pulled me close. He deserves the best of both of us, Emma. Your kindness, your strength, my resources, my protection. Together we can give him everything. We already are. Matteo stirred in his sleep, making tiny noises that melted my heart every time. In the soft glow of the nightlight, I could see Marco in some of his features, the shape of his nose, the curve of his chin. But I also saw me in his expressions. And somehow, inexplicably, I saw Dante in the fierce way he demanded attention. In the grip of his tiny fists. Biology didn't matter. This was our son, our family. 3 months after Matteo's birth, Dante came home early from work with an envelope in his hand and excitement in his eyes. It's official, he announced, kissing me soundly before scooping Matteo out of his bouncer. The adoption went through. He's legally mine. Matteo Antonio Salvatore, son of Dante and Emma Salvatore. I took the documents he offered, reading through the legal language that declared what my heart had known all along. This man was our son's father in every way that mattered. Marco's name appeared nowhere on the paperwork. It was as if he'd never existed. There's more, Dante said, settling on the couch with Matteo on his chest. Our son immediately grabbed his father's finger, holding on with impressive strength. I've been restructuring some of my businesses, making things more legitimate, cleaner. I want Matteo to inherit an empire he can be proud of, not something that puts him in danger. Dante, you don't have to. I do. He looked at me seriously. For you. For him. For the future we're building. I want to be the man you believed I could be when you said yes. That means changes. Big ones. Over the following months, I watched him transform. Dangerous associates were cut loose. Questionable business ventures were dissolved. He poured resources into the hotels, into real estate, into legitimate investments. It wasn't overnight, wasn't easy, but Dante approached it with the same determination he brought to everything. Some people think I'm going soft, he told me one evening as we gave Matteo his bath. Our son splashed happily, delighted by the water. That marriage and fatherhood have made me weak. What do you think? I think they're idiots. He smiled, capturing Matteo's kicking foot and kissing his toes, making our son giggle. I'm not weaker. I'm more focused. Everything I do now has purpose. Building something that lasts, creating a legacy worth passing on, protecting what's mine. His eyes met mine over the tub. You and Matteo are my strength, Emma, not my weakness. On our first anniversary, Dante surprised me with a trip, just the three of us, to a private villa in Tuscany. He'd arranged everything, including a nanny to help with Matteo so we could have some time together. The villa was stunning, all stone and terracotta tiles, surrounded by vineyards and olive groves that rolled toward distant hills. This is where my mother was born, Dante explained, as we stood on the terrace watching the sunset, Matteo asleep in his arms. About 30 miles from here, she used to tell me stories about her childhood, about the beauty of Italy. I always wanted to bring her back, show her that we'd made it, that her sacrifices meant something. She'd be so proud of you, I said, wrapping my arms around his waist. Of the man you've become, of the father you are. I hope so. He kissed the top of my head, careful not to disturb our sleeping son. Sometimes I wish she could meet you, could see this little one. She always said I'd find someone special when I least expected it. Guess she was right. We spent 2 weeks in that villa, and for the first time since we'd met, we weren't surrounded by security teams and business demands. We were just a family, taking walks through the vineyards, eating long dinners under the stars, watching Matteo discover new textures and sounds. Dante taught me Italian phrases, told me stories about his childhood, let me see the man beneath the dangerous exterior. One night, after putting Matteo to bed, we sat on the terrace drinking wine and watching fireflies dance in the darkness. Do you ever regret it? I asked quietly. Marrying me so fast, taking on someone else's child, changing your entire life? Dante set down his glass, turned to face me fully. Emma, look at me. When I did, the intensity in his eyes stole my breath. You are the best decision I ever made. Matteo is the greatest gift I could have received. This life we're building, it's everything I never knew I wanted. So no, cara mia, I don't regret a single moment. Even the crazy beginning, the assassination attempt and kidnapping me, and especially that. He smiled, pulling me into his lap. Because it brought you to me. I don't believe in fate, Emma, but I believe in us. I believe we were meant to find each other, meant to build this family. And I'd go through it all again if it meant ending up here, with you, with our son, with this future we're creating together. I kissed him then, pouring everything I felt into it. Gratitude and love and wonder that this dangerous, complicated, surprisingly gentle man was mine. That we'd taken something that should have been a disaster and turned it into something beautiful. I love you, I whispered against his lips. More than I thought possible. More than I knew I could. I love you too, Emma Salvatore. His hands framed my face, thumbs brushing my cheekbones. My wife, my family, my everything. 2 years later, I stood in the nursery of our home, not the mansion anymore, but a sprawling house in the countryside that Dante had built for us, watching Matteo sleep. He was 2 now, all toddler energy and fierce personality, a perfect blend of stubbornness and sweetness. He called Dante Papa and had never asked about his biological father. Why would he? Dante was there for every milestone, every scraped knee, every bedtime story. I felt Dante's arms come around me from behind, his hand settling on my belly where our second child grew, a daughter this time, due in 4 months, a sister for Matteo, a child born from love instead of betrayal. You're thinking too much again, Dante murmured, his lips against my temple. Just remembering, that night at the hotel, how terrified I was, how certain I was that my life was over. And now, I turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd become my everything. Now I know it was just beginning. He kissed me softly, his hand gentle on my growing belly. Best mistake you ever made, scrubbing those floors. I laughed quietly. Best impulsive decision you ever made, marrying a pregnant maid. Wasn't impulsive, he corrected, pulling me closer. I knew from the moment I saw you that you were mine. Just took you a while to figure it out. Arrogant man. Your arrogant man, he grinned. And I saw the boy he must have been before life made him hard. Forever, Emma. You promised. Forever, I agreed, sealing it with a kiss. Through the window, I could see the gardens we'd planted together, the swing set Dante had built for Matteo, the life we'd created from chaos and violence and impossible circumstances. Marco was somewhere in the world, alive but irrelevant, nothing more than a footnote in a story that belonged to us now. The Mafia boss had married a pregnant maid on impulse, or maybe on instinct, on fate, on whatever force brings 2 broken people together and makes them whole. And while the baby growing inside me was his by blood, Matteo was his by choice, by love, by every definition that mattered. Our family wasn't traditional. Our beginning wasn't a fairy tale. But standing there in the peace we'd built, surrounded by love we'd fought for, I couldn't imagine any other story. This was ours, messy and beautiful and absolutely perfect. and I wouldn't change a single moment.